tuned in or you're watching Memorable Marketing episode 5. We're going to talk about the internet before it existed, how advertising was done, how marketing was done in the days before there was an internet. To help me with that, we're going to interview Morten, who is the CEO and founder of MediaGroup. As I pointed out during the podcast, he's my boss, but he's also my friend. We've known each other since we were 15 years old. So it's a very open, honest conversation about where we have been, where we are, and where we are heading. So stay tuned for this great episode.
This is actually really exciting, generating real business for real companies.
Welcome to Memorable Marketing. This is episode 5, and today we're interviewing Morten. Full disclosure up front, Morten is the CEO of the company, and thereby he's my boss, so I better be in my best behavior. Even more full disclosure, I've known Morten since I was 15 years old, so if it's a little bit familiar sometime, the conversation between us, that's probably why. But I wanted to talk to Morten about his background before starting MediaGroup. Morten, you've been in the marketing business, 25, 30 years? How long have you been in the marketing business, you think?
You could say until the early 90s. That's where we started to do the first initial small things. I had a little magazine at some point that was a free magazine that was distributed to cafes and the little odds and ends jobs that related to sales or to marketing. So it comes from the early 90s.
So you actually come from an offline world before the internet. That's how old you are, and I am.
Yes, the internet didn't exist when I started, I'm afraid. But nope. I would say that I worked for a company called Chili Group, which was a youth magazine. And they were like the pioneers in the digital market. They started by doing a CD they sent out with a magazine, which was really fancy. But then it became an internet thing, one of the first websites, commercial websites in Denmark, and that got me inspired. And then while I was working there, I did something else with supermarkets, so it didn't really have anything to do with the magazine. I was contacted by DoubleClick. DoubleClick today is what we know from Google, which is the banner advertising system that they use. And in those days, DoubleClick had a media sales organization all over the world, and they needed somebody who could handle agencies, and that was me. So I changed that will be in July '99. I started my first day in DoubleClick, it has evolved from there.
Okay, so that's pretty early, 99. I mean, people started getting emails in 98, 99. I mean, that's when people started sending emails. I mean,
it was crazy. Yeah, it was before
way before iPhone.
iPhone didn't exist. I believe in 2001 I had a really one of those fancy phones which was palm reader, and you had a little pen that you could do things with, and it was
I had that too.
Amazing. But looking back now, it was just rudimentary, right?
Then Nokia communicator, then the BlackBerry, also known as the Crackberry, and
had those two. Yeah,
long before they even come up with the phone
exactly.
and the whole system there. Yeah, so it's just a different. All right, so you were at DoubleClick, and so you helped work with agencies, and that was because agencies was at that time very analog. They were in a world where printing, publishing, and TV and radio, I presume, and they were trying to understand this new internet. What is that and how do I? So
everybody was building up a digital department. So all the big agencies were building up. And one of the biggest agency actually had quite an advanced program. One of our owners today, Martin, worked there and was my counterpart.
Just another quick side note here. Martin is Martin Schradek. He's a partner in MediaGroup, and Morten and Martin have known each other since preschool days. So they've been each other's bosses in many different times, and today they're partners in MediaGroup.
Martin worked there and was my counterpart. Some other people that we today are related to the business in terms of advising or introduction to clients were also working in those agencies. And many of those people from those days, we still talk together because it was a pioneering spirit. It was crazy, insanely expensive compared to what we do today, but also it was a brand new breaking ground of innovation and opportunity, and of course this is before the .com crash, so everybody was positive and nothing could go wrong, right? So yeah,
that's true. This is true, and I assume there was no communities online. There was nowhere. There wasn't. I mean, it's so easy today. You have Facebook, you got Twitter, you got
Facebook
TikTok.
Didn't exist. Facebook, Twitter didn't exist. No.
So you have. It's made it easier for marketeers, at least, to go out there and find an audience. Back then, there wasn't any community sites. It was before MySpace, Zoom. Yeah.
MySpace was about that time, I believe. Just another little funny story. Google didn't exist. The search engine of those days was called Alta Vista, which we sold advertising on. So, and I still remember in early 2000 when Google came out, there was no advertising on it. We was just looking at this white page with a line in you can search, just saying these guys are stupid. And they only charged on a click basis, which were just even more insane. You couldn't build a business from that. And I will say, looking at where Google is today, they really know what they were doing.
So the model back then for Yahoo and Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves and all these other defunct search engines now was they thought like a phone book, the old yellow pages, right? You would pay. The more you paid, the bigger ads, the more you paid up front. That was the mindset. They took the idea of a yellow pages and put it online, whereas Google said, no, we want to search everything. And whatever people are searching for, that's what's come up. Whereas on Yahoo, you were forced down a certain path when you were searching for things. AOL was also the same way when they try to get people online.
And this was actually so different because, and this is how I got my first client, which was Saxo Bank, still a client of the agency today. My boss gave me that client because they were very pissed at him. So, but he didn't tell me that. He just says, here is a very innovative company, have a chat with them. So it turns out that they were bidding on Alta Vista on the keyword Forex, which is the main keyword for what they do, and they lost. So they were pissed with us, and they were very upset, but you were bidding for the keyword, and the one that won the bid won the word. And that was what you found when you searched for it. You didn't get 15 other options. So this was critical, right? And this is actually how I got introduced to one of the owners of Saxo Bank. Not on a very positive way and not a very happy note, but just thinking about how you can say what you want about Google, but at least you're presented with a variety of options of answers. You didn't have that option.
And also, you can't own a keyword on Google. Everybody can bid on the keywords.
Exactly.
Time and money. But they can. You bought the keyword in Alta Vista. That's it, and you owned it. I mean, that's just so you're buying land. That's crazy to think about. Wow, that's different. And yeah, Saxo Bank is still a client today. So you had them for good part of
20. Yeah, I would say almost 17 years in the agency, but I worked with them since '99, right? So. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and of course, huge changes both on my side, but definitely also on their side. Yeah. So it's part of the evolution, but it's also funny to look back at because it's good to see how despite all, things have actually evolved in, I think, a much nicer way for the user. You can like or not like that you're being tracked, but in those days, we couldn't do that. I remember even the first couple of years, cookies were not allowed in Germany, just forbidden, And when you think about seeing the same ad 50 times, wasting clients' money, but also you as a person seeing the same ad 50 times, or keeping on seeing these Russian dating banners, which were, for some people, are completely irrelevant, cookies, like them or not, they are actually helping also to show you relevant ads that are relevant to you rather than just random ads. So, I think seeing how that evolution has spurred on is good. That we're now changing a little bit. Yes, it's fine. There should be some constraints on what data that they can use. But on the other hand, we get all these free platforms. We forget that Facebook is free. Nobody's asking you to use it. Nobody's, so use it, but it comes with a price. That is, they take your information, your data, and they make money on it. That's a trade-off.
As Tim Cook, as the CEO of Apple, is if the product is free, then you are the product, right? I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
Definitely a trade-off for that. All right, so you started working with Saxo Bank, and then at some point you decide to go out on your own.
No, yes and no. But Saxo Bank was and became the biggest client in DoubleClick, then they had an agency that handled their business, and this agency got into some financial trouble, and it ended up with my company losing money because we couldn't get paid, and the agency had gotten the money, but they were gone. And then I had a very late night session with one of the owners of Saxo Bank, where we try to find out what can we do here. And then in that conversation, I was got a little bit an insight on the expansion plan of Saxo Bank. And keep in mind, this was one of the leading online trading platforms. When they started, they were still using a fax, so this was all new for them, and they were going to go global, right? They were 10 people when I first met them, and at this point, when I had this conversation, they were a couple hundred in a fairly nice place in Copenhagen. But the result of that meeting that late night to solve out how we can recover that kind of money was that they were looking for someone or something that could assist them all over the world buying advertising. And where I was sitting, I was constrained to only sell them what DoubleClick had. So all the rest of the net I couldn't sell. So I tried to make a deal with my at that time CEO of DoubleClick, and he was just being a dick, to be putting it plainly. He had no clue what he was doing. So the result was that I quit my job and I set up a company with another guy, Henrik.
Just a little side note here. Henrik Rode is the associate partner in MediaGroup, and he was the co-founder together with Morten Gottrup back in the day.
And we started servicing Saxo Bank from the first day, even a month before we opened the agency officially. We started working and serving them, and we quit our jobs. And the company at that time was founded on a credit based upon our 2 cars. We had 2 used cars, and I was living in a small house in north of Copenhagen, and we had a guest room for maybe 4 square meters. And in that guest room, we sat 2 guys working, and that's how the company got started. So I've always credited the one of the owners of Saxo Bank as this is the guy that actually made it possible that I sit here today. I know it's also part of what up to me, but if he had not inspired me or encouraged me to build your own, be your own boss, and we will be your first client, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I would most likely be maybe doing marketing for a big organization or in a big agency, but not my own. So yeah.
He pushed or shoved you or provoked you or somehow stirred something in you, and you made it happen. That's impressive. That's good.
Yeah.
Those of you who don't know what Saxo Bank is, there will be an episode on them, but it's a very big online banking, forex exchanging, and many other things, and we'll have an episode on them as they're one of our clients. It's very interesting what they do. All right, Morten, so you started the company, you were 2 people, and today you are, 53 people? How many are we?
I don't know the precise number. I think we're late 40s right now, to be on the safe side. It's been 17 years since we started, but the last couple of years has been at a very different pace than the beginning, but also the ambitions, and what we want to achieve are different. And again, this becomes with the evolution of the media we're in, because in the beginning we did banner advertising, and we went to one website, we negotiated a deal, we placed the banner ad, and it was a lot of insertion orders to keep track and a lot of monitoring of websites. Again, in those days, programmatic didn't exist, so you could only buy it this way here. It was still quite amazing and all that, but I think after a couple of years, we met a guy that helped us do that weird work on Google. So he did the Google stuff for Saxo Bank, and we had an amazing success doing a global campaign to generate contacts to Saxo Bank. I believe at one point we were up at 40,000 contacts in 1 month delivered to Saxo Bank. But it should be said, that kind of volume does also create a lot of issues with quality and stuff like that. But we were given a specific task. There's no limit. get as many, and then we'll look at the quality after. But so slowly we got introduced to Google, and that pretty much stayed the course until I believe 2010 or something like that. It was mainly banners and Google that was run by somebody else, but on our behalf, that we were doing in the agency. Again, Facebook, I believe, started in, I don't know, 2008 or 9 or something like that, but there was no ads on it. This was no ads whatsoever. So today, where Facebook maybe is our second biggest channel we spend money in, that you couldn't in those days, right? So
for business. But you have to think about how much traffic does one website have, and you wouldn't know. There's no numbers, there's no tracking, so you just estimated how much they have. Then you have to contact the webmaster and say, "Hey, we would like to buy advertising space on your website," negotiate a deal, and then rotate your banners on there. Whereas today, Google or any other ad service can just put your banner out across thousands and millions of pages if that's what you want. I mean, so yeah, things have gotten a lot easier. So you're definitely pioneering back then. That's pretty impressive.
But I should maybe just add to with the evolution, because when the different channels started coming, like Facebook, like Instagram and other channels, of course the complexity of digital marketing became much more complex and also time consuming, and I believe in 2008, 9, 10, around there, we started hiring people to do special tasks. So we had them in the agencies. We're starting with PPC as the first one, and then it grew on from there to be on the different channels like we have today, where we have social media, we have programmatic, we have PPC. And then we have organic SEO works, and of course tracking and that whole part there. But we didn't have that in those days. So it has been a massive change, and we could not do what we do today if we've stayed. We wouldn't be alive if we just did banners, because it's not in itself a business that's big enough to make a living, right? So yeah, it has been a very interesting journey, and to see this evolution.
And so as the key word here is evolution, right? You keep adapting to the changing landscape, the changing market, the changing players, the changing opportunities, where you constantly have to navigate a path through on a journey. That's pretty impressive. All right, so as we said before, you've grown, the company has grown. You now have offices in many places around the world, and particularly you have a big office in Hong Kong to handle the Asian markets, to be able to help clients if they want to go into the Chinese market, they want to go into the Hong Kong market, to Japan, to Korea, to any place in Asia where we have people who can specialize in that language. How important has that Hong Kong office been for the growth?
Oh, it's been quite important. I mean, but it's always it's also part of how we evolve our relationship with our clients. So it became pretty clear at some point that in order for us to have a better presence in a market such as China, we can't sit here in Western Europe. So it pretty much became obvious to us that you want to have a presence in that market, or in markets out in Asia, which are quite different in mindset that we are in Western Europe. You have to have people on the ground that are local. And therefore, this became the starting point. So if you go to Russia, there's a price for Russians.
Yeah.
And then there's a price for expats or internationals, and funny enough, that's a higher price.
Yeah. So people
yeah. So again, there comes a need to have somebody with local knowledge and feet on the ground. And back to the Hong Kong office. So besides enabling us to be really better at handling clients that has needs for the Chinese market, and this is a massive market, so we have to absolutely be there. We also found some really talented people, and it's also been, extremely good to see how they have evolved and taken responsibility on their shoulders, even at a fairly young age. I think this is really what I think keeps me really happy, is to see how people they grab an opportunity. I did that myself, and I know how that is, and I enjoy seeing other people doing that, right? And not only a much more close and a foothold for the Chinese and Asian market, but also some really great colleagues. And so there's a couple of winnings on that office in itself.
Awesome. That's good to hear. You're in London, you're in Poland, you're in Switzerland,
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, Switzerland too, but it's maybe a little bit too much to say that it's a sparkling headquarters. It's me, and this is the headquarters. Yes.
You're looking at Australia right now, so
So the Swiss market is like some of these other high-end markets. You could say it's very it's a glass bottle. So there are some opportunities here, but it's very difficult to get a foothold in here. So our business in Switzerland is mainly international companies operating out of here globally, not local stuff. And there are plenty of good agencies in Switzerland that can do Switzerland. There are, however, not a lot. I would say very few Swiss agencies that can handle international stuff like we do. And this is where our advantage comes.
So having a global mindset in terms of the clients and delivering them in all markets around the world. Yeah. We talked about the past. Let's talk about the present. Big topic on everyone's mind, and certainly in the marketing world, is this 14.5, the update from on iOS. And a lot of people are freaking out, and a lot of people are losing focus. Some people say this is the end of what we know, and other people say this is a new beginning, a new opportunity to evolve and to embrace. Where are you in terms of that?
Well, I mean, I think it was coming, whatever we like it or not, because but again, it's no different than when you look back at some of the banner advertising that was done 10 years ago with, for instance, pop-ups. They don't exist anymore hardly, right? Only on extreme junk sites, right? In those days, we also had something called pop-unders, which actually popped up under your screen. So when you closed your main browser, suddenly there was an ad there, right? You had some that put in a script that sat on your machine, and in those days, people using a modem, and it suddenly started using the modem and break. So, then there was a big change on that, and now we're going to have a same change where you have maybe an excessive use of people's data, even though people were aware that they were giving the data away. I mean, I think it came as a surprise. And of course, Apple being the leader on, you should own your own data and be in charge of that, all fair. I will say that I think people are going to come in for a little bit of surprise that, you look at all the paywalls that are popping up, and I think we'll see more of that now, because you cannot make a living if you create good content and people don't want to click on ads on this, then they have to pay for it in some way or another. I mean, nothing is free, right? So I think there will be this is a right evolution, but I think something good will come of it, and what that is going to be is difficult to predict. I think we will see more hybrid models of advertising and access to either information or platforms. I think we will see something coming from that, just like I see that what we have now in terms of the different media channels on a digital basis. I think we'll see more hybrids where they mix together. It could also be offline. We are already seeing small steps on the TV front merging with digital stuff. So there will be a lot of different things. And since things are evolving so quickly, I would say nobody can predict what we're looking at in 3 to 5 years. But I can assure you it's going to be different than today. That's the only thing I'm sure about.
I come from, as you know, I come from the film industry, and in about '99, when the internet started exploding and piracy and peer-to-peer networks and Napster and all those things started coming along, that was a huge blow for the film industry. And in the beginning, most producers were so afraid to touch the internet, whereas film industry had to learn how to embrace and now adapt. And look at Netflix, look at Disney, who's finally gone into that streaming space as well. You have to adapt and evolve. I mean, I'll give you a famous example from the film world. There was a guy called Jack Valenti who used to be the president of the Motion Picture Association of America. Long story. And he was arguing in the U.S. Supreme Court against the VCR, which was the video cassette recorder, that the VCR is the Boston Strangler for any it's the Boston Strangler for the movie industry. It will destroy the movie industry if people allow to record movies at home on their VCR that's played on TV. And what turned out to be VHS turned into the biggest gold mine for the studios, and then that got replaced by DVDs, and now when I believe that when one door closes, a new one opens. It's just a matter of
absolutely
and get around it, and don't focus on the past, as you've talked about how you have navigated this path and this journey of constant evolving, changing dynamic mechanics and tools and competing sites. So yeah, that's my take on this.
But the key word is staying flexible and agile. And the only reason we're here today with what we are is because we did that in the past, because you have to. Otherwise, what you do is not going to be existing tomorrow or next year. And if you don't evolve and adapt or add more channels that you can service, your business will slowly die out. So it's the same thing that you mentioned with the movie industry. We have to do the same thing. We have to evolve and stay on our toes. I also think it's quite healthy. I mean, once you get to the point where you no longer do that, then you're in real trouble, right? So I think again that's also why we have a lot of younger people in our agency today. They're the one who has to keep us on our toes and what's new. Not me, not some of the other owners. We are too old for that now, and not that we're not innovative and all that, but people that are 20, 30, 35, who might have grown up not even knowing what was before the internet. They have a different grasp of things, but also a different view of things, and we need that to stay on our toes and be sharp, right? And yeah.
My daughter, she says she wants a phone. I said, well, you can have a phone when I had a phone. Well, how old were you when you had the phone, first phone, Dad? When I was 30. That's when I had my first mobile phone.
Yeah. But they don't understand there was a world before the iPhone, right? And I also sit back and think about that. I mean, how we functioned before. We functioned fine. But we were also, we were not so privileged to have everything on our fingertips like we do today, and that's a good thing. But it also has some drawbacks, right? But I tend to have the good things, and I mean, I think we all as humans are at a better place with this at our hands than if we didn't. And then you can discuss, all the fake news crap that people are fed by and all that. And again, if you work in my, you know what to watch out for, but people who don't know, of course, they don't know that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a big benefit for everybody what we see today. But it's only the first step out of many that will come.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before we had phones, when we had to make an appointment, you had to be there at that time because that's what you agreed upon. You couldn't text, call, change, adapt, or anything like that. That was one thing. But I got to say, the GPS maps has really made my life easier, man. Don't get lost. I've lived so many places around the world now, and it just saves me from getting lost. I really appreciate that. I don't like getting lost. So yeah. All right, Morten, looking forward, you said you can't predict what's happening in 2 or 3 years and not asking you, but where do you see the agency heading? Where do you see what's happening next? What would you like to have? Is it more clients? Is it fewer clients? Is it more offices? What's the outlook from your chair?
No, so there are many things that we're heading towards. So now, July 1st, we'll be opening our office in Poland, in Krakow, and that's going to be very exciting. And that won't be the last. There are still a couple of steps we would like to have a foothold in. It could be, and I'm just saying these without there's any definite plans, but UK have a real office there, or we could sit with our partners there. It could be America. That are next in line to have a real presence.
Boots on the ground.
Exactly. As to the composition of clients, again, I'll be a little anecdotal here. We had a wake-up call in 2006. I know it's many years ago, where we had one client that was 95% of the business of the agency. And we had a gentleman agreement with the owner of that client, and overnight we lost that agreement because they had hired some external people that had no ethics in terms of honoring agreements. And we sat down there, and of course the world was just black, and nothing was just, everything was a disaster. But we turned it around to, well, we're going to show these guys that they made a mistake. So we reached out to the 20 biggest competitor of this company, and within 2 weeks we had 3 of them as clients. And after 3 months, funny enough, the client asked us back because the people they had hired from outside had no idea what they were doing, and the agency they hired to do it had no idea. So suddenly they came back to the fold, and I think it comes today as to, we cannot afford that we have one big client that sits on everything in the agency. We don't anymore. We made a decision those days. We will never ever do that. So today the composition of clients is pretty much more widely spread between a couple of really big ones, a lot of medium size that has potential to become big ones, and some are little smaller ones where we tend to help grow and learn together with them. And I think this is really healthy. And then, you know, what I think we need to focus on is to do the best we can for these clients, deliver the best results. And I think it comes by itself that we will retain a lot of relationships, and we will get new ones in, and there will be some sort of shuffling around. But as an agency, we have very few clients leaving us because of our performance as an agency. It's usually tied to they get sold, or they the person in charge, the CMO, usually leaves, and that's the time where we usually use the agency. I don't recall losing one single client because of performance, but this is how the business goes. So we have also seen that we are quite strong in certain client verticals, I would say, and the agency was mainly founded on financial clients and is still very, very strong in financial clients. That's been covered by others. We also have an amazing presence in the high-end luxury goods, and this came from mainly brightening watches, but today we have many Danish respectable old brands as clients. And then the last segment is maybe the newest one is B2B. And I would maybe highlight what has become one of the biggest clients of the agency, which is a Universal Robot, a robotic company, and we worked with them since 2017. And this has been a mind-boggling and really, really amazing journey. And the fine details of what we do today versus what we started with is also really interesting to watch. So this was a new company that had been existing for some years, but really now had to start generating contacts and at least pre-sales digitally. And in the B2B world, this is really, really a different mindset from early days where it was, dinners and going to fairs and venues and shows and stuff, trade shows, right? And the first task we were given by the old CEO was he wanted 1 million email addresses, no matter what. And we were saying, all right, but the quality is going to be questionable. And then we started working for a quarter or 3 months. We started working with them on what is it we should deliver. And we ended up delivering what we do today is contacts. And these are people that are interested in either downloading an ebook or a white paper or joining a webinar or seeing anything that they can interact with. And they, for that, leave their name, their email, contact information. And with that, we generate roughly 55,000 contacts per year on a global level to this segment. So this has been an amazing journey to see how you can then fine-tune what it is we deliver, and then also be part of what happens next. So what happens when the automation starts, when we start to qualify these contacts into the next step, where it's at some point some salesperson, a human, will interact with this person, and then the company will send out somebody to show a demo in the factory, and then of course this ends up in sales. And the life cycle from contact to sale to having a robot on site is from 6 to 12 months in average. So of course it took some time to even see the result of what we did, which is always challenging when you sit and you spend a lot of money in advertising and you don't really see, hey, where's my robot? Why is it not being sold? But today they're doing brilliantly and they are very happy. And then of course it's not only just generating a quantity of contacts, but there is also very, very specific skills set in delivering quality. And so we see this now with the number of conversions they get from the contacts that becomes the next step, which is called MQLs, is increasing and is really good. But this is also a process that we go through with these guys. And I should also say that there has been a very deliberate and very specific resource allocation to the organic part, because in the B2B world, we know that 80% of all sales and interactions between companies comes from extensive research where they use Google. And if you're not present at Google on the organic part, which means that the part that is generated by the algorithm Google, not the paid part, then you have a much less chance to have a presence. And so this is one of the very amazing things to see how we went from being nowhere in this area to now this is one of the keystones in their success, and I would say a very large portion of their sales comes from this effort, a very large portion.
This is very interesting, and if you are interested in this subject as listener or watching this, then spoiler alert, one of the upcoming episodes will feature an interview with the robotic company, and then they will talk about, and I'll interview them about what we did and how it worked and how it's running. So that's one of the episodes that's coming up. And as you mentioned earlier, it's a long cycle from 6 to 12 months to buy. I mean, you don't wake up in the morning and go, hey, I want to buy 12 robotic arms. I mean, you really have to plan, strategize, examine the market. So it's amazing that building a funnel, building a system where people get qualified throughout that journey so they're ready to talk to a human being at some point. And I can't wait to interview them from that company. So it's going to be a very exciting episode that we're going to do. So yeah, that sounds good.
So this is the new thing I think we'll see more of in the future is B2B company. And I think it's been spurred on and really, really accelerated due to COVID, because now all these companies, they had to do it to survive. So we see that across the board. And I think adding to this, we've also had the fortunate opportunity to work with some of these venture funds that buys up under digitalized B2B companies and turn around and start automating things. And we are part of that with some of our clients now. And this is an area we'll be working much more in the future, even from, the angel investor perspective and days, and helping accelerate the digital growth of these companies, because this is going to impact on the bottom line. And these companies that are investing with a 3, 4, 5 years time horizon, they will greatly benefit from that. So this is an area we're working on now, how to do better in.
Interesting. Can you elaborate a little more on that, or is there any specifics? Or
no, it's just that we see that a lot of these companies are bought up because they have been lacking or been behind on digital expertise, and we can provide to some extent some of this expertise and get them rolling on that, setting in a system, start tracking things, putting numbers to what does it cost, how long does it take to generate. And then at the same time, these companies also start, introducing CRM systems and automating things. And suddenly you'll see a B2B company going from 5% growth a year to 20% growth a year, because this is where the opportunity lays. And suddenly you're also no longer constrained by boundaries that you can only be in country A, but you can suddenly be in all the surrounding countries. And, so the market expansion becomes quicker. and the growth becomes more efficient, and at the end of the day it also becomes cheaper to generate business, because if you look at the cost of having a fair at some big trade fair somewhere, with the staff, the time put into it is massively expensive, and you're there competing with all your competitors in a very tiny space. So this is a place where you can really make a difference. So I think we'll see more of that. I'm quite certain we'll see more of that, and I think this is where the blue ocean lays for us as an agency, because this is also a little bit of uncharted territory. It's not fancy brands like from the consumables, but this is actually really exciting, generating real business for real companies.
All right, Morten, it's absolutely a pleasure speaking with you and catching up. It's fun trip down the memory lane, but also talking about the present.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you for being part of episode 5, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a great day. Or evening, I should say. Huh? Cheers.